Hugh Grant is joining us as well from London. Hugh, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
Yeah, you know, the Atlantic Ocean can sometimes create a bit of a time warp here. The story is on the front pages of the papers here in the United States, but it was slow in brewing. It's been brewing there for a long time. How would you describe the public reaction to the daily revelations you're seeing there?
Well, the big moment came last Monday when people had known for some time that actors, musicians, politicians were being hacked, and everyone thought that's wrong, but it didn't really get people emotionally involved until last Monday. One of our national papers revealed that this young girl who'd been abducted and murdered, that they'd been hacking her phone, listening to her messages, and shockingly deleting some of her messages when her voicemail box filled up, because they wanted more messages to come in, which of course gave her parents hope that she might still be alive. She'd been missing for 6 months. And that's when the country really rose up in revulsion.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think people there have the feeling that this was simply business as usual? And by the way, this appears to be prevalent not just at one newspaper or even two. It could be wider than that. That the feeling among these tabloid reporters and executives was, as long as the story sells, there was an entitlement to get that story using any means possible.
Yeah, that was the culture, and still is, I mean, to a certain extent, within the tabloid press in this country. It's terrifying. And, you know, if you ask the question, why didn't we do anything about it before, the answers are now emerging. The police, unfortunately, deliberately dragged their feet because they'd been, in some senses, lent on by the power of, in particular, News International, Rupert Murdoch's organisation. And the government were also equally terrified of him. He had the power through his papers to get them elected, and his paper knew, you know, dirty details about individual MPs, and so they were unwilling ever to take him on. Only 3 weeks ago, all our major politicians in this country were sucking up to Rupert Murdoch and drinking champagne on his lawn at his summer party. So it is sort of almost comic that today in Parliament they're all competing to say that he's a terrible person.
Yeah, these are your words. You said this recently, quote, "This is a watershed moment for David Cameron and his government. He can either continue to be Murdoch's little helper or he can be a statesman." This appearance before Parliament by Rupert Murdoch, his son, and top executives, is this, in your opinion, something real, or is this still public relations to try to present a face to the public that they're actually doing something?
Well, we don't really know yet whether they will accept that invitation or not. I mean, I have to say I think it's unlikely. If they do, it will be the greatest piece of parliamentary theatre we've ever had in this country. But
that I authorized, and I've said
two quick things, Hugh. First of all, why should people in the United States care about this? You've spent a lot of time here as well. You've had your encounters with the tabloid press in the U.S. Do you think this is prevalent here as well?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would have thought it was of interest to Americans simply because Rupert Murdoch does own an enormous amount of your media, you know, with Fox News and the Fox station and 20th Century Fox Pictures, etc., and some of your newspapers. And I think people need to ask themselves, you know, who is this man who owns such a large part of our media? And I think, you know, when you hear some of the new allegations about who the News of the World was phone hacking, that may include, and I stress it's just allegations at this stage, some of the 9/11 victims. Well, I don't know. That may strike a chord with Americans.
And finally, responsibility. I mean, the fact of the matter is millions of people still go out and buy these newspapers and log on to these types of websites. Do those people, do the consumers shoulder the blame as well?
I think we have to, yeah. It's a strange business, isn't it? I mean, the speciality of tabloids like that is to find the lowest common denominator and work out sort of our worst instincts and then to purvey for them. And unfortunately, they do it extremely well, and we are all guilty of falling for that.
Hugh Grant joining us from London this morning. Hugh, it's nice to see you. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you too.